Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I'm Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And today we're doing something a little special because Trish is sick and can't record. And the next part of Wild Arms is too good to not have everybody together. So we also, moments after finishing recording and saying the vote will open in a couple of weeks last week, we decided screw all of that and the voting is opening now. And we kind of pivoted on our plans for the rest of the year. And so we, instead of doing 2 more games after this and then our best of the rest, we're doing the best of the rest right now, which is a big 16 games enter, 2 games leave ranked choice poll to pick the top 2 of the games that we never got around to playing. And tonight me and Bernard are just going to go through and talk about all the games on the list, because some of you might be joining us fairly recently. Some of you might have only listened to Persona 3 and Legend of Dragoon because you were trying to find their OSTs on Spotify, etc. You might not know everything that lost, so we're bringing them back up to refresh everybody's memory and give each of them like a fair shot in the poll, and not just be, well, I remember the last 2 were Paper Mario games, so I'm going to vote for them. So
each year we do a number of games, and for each of them, our listeners, our supporters, rather, the people who give us money, get to vote on between 2 games for us to play. And then at the end of the year, we do a sellout game, which we just decide on. You don't get to vote for that. We do that because we want to.
Yes.
And then after that, we do a best of the rest, which I think is a corny name for it. But I'm a newer addition to the podcast. I wasn't around in the decision-making phase, so I don't get to have a say in that. But
if it helps you feel any better, it was named the same way everything was named on the podcast, is we just kind of said words once and then they became canon, and I just referenced the idea in the original first thing. It's like, and then we'll have like a thing where we decide the best of the rest, and then best of the rest is now what it's called.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say that you put a lot of thought into it and are offended by my thinking it's corny.
No.
Anyway, we do a best of the rest where all the games that lost that year get to have a shot at coming back. But only one gets to win each year. So we have a lot of games that sound cool and we want to play them, but we never got to. So 2 more will get to be played in this, which is year 5, which is our like celebration year.
Yeah, and as a bonus for that, we are also doing a sellout game this year that fits the celebration year vibe, and I'm super excited for that one. But
Yes.
that'll be a surprise when we announce it. But yeah, so I guess we'll just dive right in, and we'll start talking about these in the order in which they lost their polls. So going all the way back to the original poll, the poll was between Rogue Galaxy and Okage Shadow King, because I wanted to come out of the gate swinging that we play weird random bullshit on this podcast. And I did not pick anything that anyone would ever want to play. So yeah, the loser of that one was Okage Shadow King, and it's a really, really cool PS2 game. It's an early PS2 game. It comes on kind of on a blue disc, which is cool.
That means it's a CD, right?
Yeah, it means it's a CD, not a DVD. And it's very much a, what if we made like a Tim Burton RPG made by Japanese people, so it has Japanese humor and ideas and stuff, and it looks like a Nightmare Before Christmas or Coraline or something like that. It reminds me a lot of, well, now it's gone, Alice McGee?
Coraline, film that Tim Burton was famously involved in at all.
I mean, he wasn't, but the guy that actually did the work for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Henry
Henry
Selick.
Selick,
Yes.
he absolutely made Coraline. But yeah, it reminds me of, I think I'm thinking of Alice McGee. There's some media comic book franchise that I do not involve myself in whatsoever, but I see the art constantly at Hot Topic, and I'm like, that looks pretty cool, and that's what Okage looks like.
Alice McGee.
I think so.
Are you thinking of American McGee's Alice?
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's the one. But that sounds
I
right.
couldn't fault you for not generating the name American McGee because it sounds like a fake ass name.
It does. But yeah, the plot of the game, from what I vaguely absorbed, my friends in high school were obsessed with this game, but basically you're a, a little kid whose sister is in trouble for some JRPG reasons, and you make a deal with Stan, not Satan, Stan, the Demon King, and he possesses your shadow, and then you go on an adventure, and you basically have an angel devil, a shoulder devil the entire time, except it's behind you in your shadow, and it's literal Satan, and it's spooky and weird and quirky and cute. The next game that lost is a favorite of mine. It was my first round auto by RPG loser, and that's Shining Force. Shining Force rules. If I remember correctly, this was a very close fight between the very close vote. That's, I don't know what we're talking about, voting, and vote was the word that wasn't in my brain. Well, it was a very close vote between Shining Force and Legend of Dragoon, because both games are really, really good. And Shining Force is a old school, like, Super NES Fire Emblem style tactics game, except it's doesn't have permadeath, and instead of being like a visual novel type presentation for the storyline portions, it is a Dragon Quest where you have a world map you explore, and you have towns you go through, and dungeons you have to go through and find treasure chests in, and stuff like that. So it's a very unique vibe, and it's a Sega RPG, which makes it extra cool. And it's done by Camelot, who you all probably know from the Mario Tennis games, but also from Golden Sun is their other big one that they're famous for. And this is where they cut their teeth, and it's very, very good. Have you played Shining Force before?
No, I'm pretty sure I played the Game Boy Advance remake like in 2004 when I was 13,
So it doesn't count.
so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Also, I don't even know if that remake is good or not.
I think it is serviceable and doesn't do anything like avoid it, don't play it, but it has like a weird like card collecting mechanic just like stapled onto it, from what I remember. And the art style is slightly different, and I like the Sega art style better.
I wish the predecessor to Shining Force, Shining in the Darkness, would get a Sega Ages re-release with an auto map feature, because that one is a first-person dungeon crawler,
Mm-hmm.
and I've played a bit of it, and it's super cool, but I don't have time or energy or focus to draw a map.
Absolutely not. Yeah, the Shining series is wild.
Weird.
So it was a dungeon crawler, then a tactics RPG, and then there was a third-person action RPG on the Saturn, and now then on the Game Boy Advance, Shining Soul, I think, is a turn-based RPG. Don't quote me on that one. It might be action as well. And then after it took a couple of years off, it came back as like a RPG with Devil May Cry combat type action RPG.
Shining Soul is a game. Shining Soul and Shining Soul 2 on the Game Boy Advance, I believe, are like Diablo likes, I think I heard.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not like anything else they did. I knew it was a somewhere else in the RPG genre, but yeah, Shining is wild, and we can go almost back to the beginning and play Shining Force. Speaking of other weird shit, the next vote was between Sailor Moon Another Story and Inuyasha DS. The DS game is Curse of the Secret Jewel, I think. Bernard's already Googling it to fact check me. So, but
It's Inuyasha Secret of the Divine Jewel.
Secret of the Divine Jewel. I was close.
I'm it makes me mad that that has the D and the S initials, but they're not, it's not arranged, so it's not like Inuyasha Divine Secret because it's on the DS.
Yeah.
Because I
Like
loved when they did that with
it was
DS
so
games.
stupid, but I loved it so much.
Resident
Um
Evil Deadly Silence.
Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow.
There are probably more.
Advance Wars Dual Strikers. Anyways, so I don't know much about the Inuyasha DS game. I downloaded it for Scarlett because she wanted to play an RPG like Dad, but she wanted it to star a girl. So I had like six possible games that she could play, and so the Inuyasha game you play as a character that is friends with Kagome in the modern Tokyo style, and something something magic, something something whispers in the night. You go to the Bone Eater's Well, and you end up in feudal Japan, and kind of self-insert yourself to like play the hits through Inuyasha with its own like meta story thrown on. I don't know RPG wise how it fits and plays and stuff like that. I never ever got that far. This was Eli's auto by RPG, and he played it a lot. And he's not here to tell us how it is, but yeah, anime tie-in RPGs on the DS are a vibe.
I know next to nothing about Inuyasha. I have heard that it's sort of like a mix of typical shonen action anime, but also like romance and
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a shonen anime written by a woman. So growing up, I always thought it was shojo, and I believe Viz Media slaps the shojo sticker on the side, but it is 100% a shonen battle anime with Inuyasha has to go get stronger and fight more and more demons and look for more and more stuff. But because it's from the viewpoint of Kagome, it feels different from all of them, and that makes it really, really cool.
Neat.
The next game would be the first one of year two. Was Shadows of Adam. Back at the time, there were like basically a much smaller handful of we actually are serious about this and we're giving it a shot. Western indie RPGs. So we picked Cosmic Star Heroine and Shadows of Adam, and turns out Cosmic Star Heroine didn't take itself seriously, but it won the poll anyways. And so Shadows of Adam is by Something Classic, and it's it's really cool.
All
Don't
I know about it is I've seen some screenshots of it and I like the graphics. I like the colors and I like how some things about the graphics look a little dinky, I want
mhm.
to say, but in a way I really like.
Yeah, and the I think they were trying to make a Sega Genesis RPG and not a Super Nintendo RPG, and it's just something about like the way they designed their title screen feels Genesisy, and that dinkiness fits in with that. And yeah, I when I first saw like things from it, I was like, this looks up my alley. One thing I do like about it, because this is something I rag on a lot of pixel games, but famously on the podcast Cosmic Star Heroine, is this is a 16-bit RPG that uses 16-bit color and chunky pixels and not smooth gradients and stuff like that. The pixel art is actually like you could put this on the Genesis or Super Nintendo, and that is very cool.
Yeah, this is a game I know very little about, but I've been wanting to play because it looks neat.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Genesis RPGs, and I was trying to think of Genesis RPGs other than Phantasy Star. Do you know about Surging Aura?
I do not know about Surging Aura.
So, Surging Aura is a Japanese role playing game that, and maybe this has changed, but when I learned about it, there was not an English fan translation of it. However, there were French and Russian fan translations of it,
Wild.
which is interesting. Usually
You,
things get fan translated into English first, not
yeah,
French and Russian.
yeah.
But also, maybe I'm wrong about that. Who can say?
On romhacking.net, it only has the Russian and French versions. On just Google image search results, there's quite a few that have Eng- uh, English things, so there's probably one in development if it's not published yet. But
Hmm.
yeah, looking at screenshots from Surging Aura, Shadows of Adam is a Sega Genesis RPG.
Yeah, Surging Aura also has a look.
Yeah. So the next
We
game,
should we should all learn French or Russian and play Surging Aura on the podcast.
yeah, we should. Um, I pick Russian because my
Because
mouth,
you
my
want it
can't.
to be harder.
I want it to be harder, but my mouth just can't do like French things. I don't know. I'm too Southeast Texas for that. The next game on our list was in our Xbox block. The Xbox block, the first time was a like before we put the vote out for everybody, we did a internal ranked choice voting because there's so many good sleeper hits on the Xbox 360, and nobody ever played any of them, so they were all right up our alley. And the two that we decided to give to you guys were Lost Odyssey and Last Remnant. Uh, Games I got mixed up the entirety of their life cycle on the Xbox 360, but we ended up playing Lost Odyssey, and it rules.
It's
Um,
my favorite JRPG.
yeah, it's very up there for me. I gave up on ranking things a long time ago, but it is very much up there. So much so that when I was playing Fantasian and I was like, "Oh, this is a Final Fantasy 8 like. It looks and feels like I'm playing Final Fantasy 8." And then I get to my first memory, which is a sound novel with different font sizes and sound effects and shit. I'm like, "Oh no, this is a Lost Odyssey like," and that makes me really happy. But yeah, Last Remnant itself, the only thing I remember about it from like back in the day is that it was the first time that Square Enix used a second party engine. The first time they used Unreal. Um,
Unreal
and
Engine 3.
yeah, and I don't remember anything else about it. I remember it has a
Akitoshi Kawazu worked on it, which is notable.
yeah. I remember it has like a weird like army based JRPG battle system thing of some sort. I remember that being a it's kind of hard to figure out sort of thing. Looking at a screenshot of it, it looks like it's kind of hard to figure out. Looks like it's a little bit Final Fantasy 12, a little bit crazy, and it
Wikipedia says the game features a battle system labeled by Hiroshi Takai as a quote turn-based command-based system using symbol encounters unquote. So I think that clears everything up.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know much about Last Remnant, but I do know that it was good enough to get two remasters. One for Steam a handful of years ago, and then one for modern systems a smaller handful of years ago. And the Steam one, unfortunately, has been delisted, and then they didn't release the newer one on Steam. But yeah, it looks really cool. I know
Yeah,
they're
they were like, we're making a remaster of The Last Remnant. We can't have this crappy Windows version from 2009 on Steam anymore, but then they didn't release the remaster on Steam.
yeah, it's very odd, but I've always wanted to play it. It looks very janky and weird in the way that I like. So
You sure like janky, weird games.
I absolutely do. Um, the next one was we wanted to play micro action RPG duologies, and this was Bernard's first appearance on the pod. Correct? Was for East.
I think I had appeared on like bonus episodes and stuff, but I think East was the first time I was there for a
Full
full
season.
yeah.
Yeah. But yes, we did East 1 and 2, which are the most
Oh my god, I love East 1 and 2 so much.
they're fantastic, but there's a lot of games like say Final Fantasy 13 where they're like, "Oh, the full story is across 3 games. You really kind of have to think of them as like one solid piece. But East 1 and 2, after the original release on the Master System and PC, have only ever been sold together because literally you fall off of a building at the end of part 1 and you wake up from having hit the ground for part 2 and then you continue your quest. They are very much one solid game, and it's super cool. The
Also,
so
if I recall correctly, East 2 has like 75% of the story.
Yes, absolutely. East 1 is like, there's a bad guy in that big tall tower. Go climb the tall tower, and then you land after you fall off the tall tower, and they're like, okay, so the bad guy, he actually did all of this stuff, and here's why we have to stop them now that you've attempted it for the first time. But so to match East, we put it up against Star Tropics 1 and 2, which are less of a perfect duology, but they were almost the same like playtime, so they fit for the idea of around 8 episodes to cover 2 games. And Star Tropics are a Zelda-like that has like your tile position for puzzles and stuff is very important. And you have like your jumps like only go over like skipping one tile sort of thing. I remember, so they do puzzles and stuff with that. It's most famous for its anti-piracy thing being a hidden ink in on a letter and that came inside of the game box, and you get to a part and they're like, oh, you have to dunk the letter in water, and then you would open your game box, grab the letter, dunk it in water to see the hidden message. And
That's
modern
silly.
modern versions of it, like it came to virtual console. And in the virtual console, you have to open up the PDF viewer, and then they coded in a special button that was a picture of the letter, and you click it, and it dunks it in water and tells you what the secret code was. It's
That's
so
silly.
stupid. It's so much work for an NES game, but it's so cool. And Star Tropics is one of the first times that Nintendo was like, we should make a game about America, and none of us have ever really been there. And they famously continued doing this for the Mother series, but Star Tropics was the first one that is very, very Japanese about Americans. And yeah, I've always wanted to get around to playing them just because they're such an oddity in the history of both Nintendo and action RPGs and stuff, and piracy protection. um, the next one we played was our the first bit that we've done. We've done several bits, but we did the first year. Everything was building up to our sellout game being Final Fantasy X because we wanted Eli to play Final Fantasy X. And then our second year, everything was a lead up to play Chrono Trigger because we wanted Eli to play Chrono Trigger. So then our first one after Chrono Trigger was Chrono Cross versus Final Fantasy X2. It was both the much maligned, looked over sequels to the sellout games that we had done so far.
I
And
wouldn't call either of them much maligned and overlooked, but definitely neither of them is as popular as their and beloved as their predecessor. They're both definitely more controversial than their
yeah,
predecessors, and I would say Final Fantasy X-2 definitely did have a bit of a reputation when it came out in the
mhm,
mid-aughts when everyone was so irony poisoned.
yes. I had always heard that X2 sucked because all of my friends probably are gamer gators now. But uh I heard that it had sucked, but then I watched the opening, the What Can I Do for You? I was like, who says this game sucks? This is badass. I want to do this. And I never got around to actually playing it. I think I started it on the Vita and got like the first little introduction done, and I was like, oh, I don't want to play this game on the Vita. I want to play it on like a real console, and so I never got around to beating it. But yeah, it rules. It did Final Fantasy 15, but with lesbians so far, but before Final Fantasy 15 did it with bros. Um,
I've never played Final Fantasy X-2, even though I love Final Fantasy X so much. and I want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I will play it someday, even if it doesn't win this.
Yeah, there's a couple of these on here that I'm like, I don't want to wait another potentially 5 years if we ever do a best of the rest again. So if this game loses, I'm gonna play it like right now. And Final Fantasy X 2 is one of them. Um, Ironically, I forgot that this next game was on our best of the rest list, so I played it just a couple months ago. And that is Breath of Fire 4. It's been on my list of I want to play this game because its aesthetic is perfect, and its aesthetic is perfect. They managed to do like a isometric camera that is at the same like pixel, the textures are at like the same pixel density and camera angle as the sprites, so everything just looks fantastic the whole time, and it's so good. Yeah, Breath of Fire 4 is important for podcast lore because it was the first time that a lot of people were like, yo, you guys should play Breath of Fire 4. And so we're like, okay, cool. We'll put it up here against this other game that maybe has a shot with it. And then everybody voted for the other game. And then that's basically happened literally every time since. But yeah, Breath of Fire 4 is really, really cool. It's kind of straight up and down in its RPG ness, but then they add extra systems onto it. So you have basically just attack, skill, item, defend, but your entire party is in battle at the same time. And so if people are on the back row and they're not actively fighting in battle, they have support skills that they'll use and will hop in and jump in battle. And then you can swap places on the fly to pull the other people out, and a couple of things like that. And then of course, Ryu is a dragon, so he can transform into a dragon because that's what Breath of Fire is all about. But it's very good, and I really enjoyed it. And I've heard that Breath of Fire 3 is the masterpiece, and 4 is just okay. So I need to get around to playing Breath of Fire 3. Speaking of games that are definitely not masterpieces, our next one was weird, tiny PSP original RPGs. And we had Brave Story New Traveler, which is the one that won, versus Hex's Force, which still doesn't sound like a real game. It sounds like iOS trash that is
Heck,
asset
this
stealing from
force.
something. Yeah, but Hex's Force is really cool because it is the reason critics hated it was because it was too short, too easy, kind of a simple battle system, but the story was pretty good and the puzzles were pretty great. So
That
it's just
sounds like just a nice game to play.
yeah, it sounds like a very enjoyable couple of hours. So, uh, I know the main thing for that one is you have dual protagonists, and I know you pick one at the beginning, but I don't remember. I don't know if it's like Wild Arms and you pick one and then you play the other one, or if it's like Star Ocean where you pick one and it's slightly different throughout. But I do know the main guy and the main girl on the box art, you pick between them at the very beginning, and the storyline, they're like yin and yang, sun and moon sort of vibes, which is pretty cool. After that was starting the next year. I guess it's no, this is year 4. Oh, X2 I already said started year 3. So yeah, uh, starting of year 4, we had was our the theme for that year was guests, and so we had
Which,
Eli.
if your podcast needs, if don't try and do guests on your podcast if you are trying to have them be a guest for the duration of like 8 episodes. I mean, that's fine sometimes if you can, but it's hard to schedule for 3 people. It is harder to schedule for 4 people, and locking into doing that like 5 times in a row.
Yeah, it was really rough, but that's how we met Trish. So it's
We had
not all bad.
there was a lot of fun that year, but it was rough scheduling.
Yeah. Famously, it was just the three of us for Ragnacinti because it was day to record, and we sent the guy a message and was like, "Hey, it's time to record. Are you still free?" And I have literally never heard from him ever again. So yeah, scheduling is really really difficult. Don't sign up to do it for fucking 60 weeks in a row. Um, so yeah, the first guest we had was originally Eli's partner Jen. So it was going to be me, Eli, and Jen. So we did the first episode. Eli and Jen hated the game so much they told me they would not finish it. And so then the rest of the time I had Cerebral Wind and Desert Stream from the Discord came and we finished it. And that game was really cool, but Eli and Jen didn't like it because of some of the sexual content, quote unquote, in the first one. It's not super quote unquote, but it's like implied sexual content. So I'm really glad that that one, instead of Hyperdimension Neptunia, which is the next game on our list that might be coming up, because blue
Why?
blue blue
Why did
reflection.
y'all do that block?
We wanted magical girls, and we had already played the turns out one good one, which is Sailor Moon Another Story. And yeah, the it seemed better on paper than it would
When
have
did
turned
I
out to
join
be.
the podcast? When
uh
did I come in to knock ideas like this out of y'all's heads?
that one, episode 1 of Blue Reflection was Eli's last like official one as host, and then at the end of the season is when we did our 20th game send off and Eli's last recording. So literally right after this.
Okay.
uh
I feel like if I'd been on the podcast, I'd been like, look, I'm not risking playing Hyperdimension Neptunia. If you enjoy Hyperdimension Neptunia, that's fine, but I've seen it. It's not for me.
yeah, the main reason I had put it on there as like at all was I had played the very very beginning, and its battle system seemed like it was actually giving a crap. So I was like, oh, it's not just a H game. It's kind of trying to do stuff, and then on paper the uh parody nature of it sounds like it could work, and I was willing to risk maybe it's actually good. And so here we are again, risking if it's actually good. And so you can vote for Hyperdimension Neptunia if you would really like to. Cool. So yeah, then the next game was the first block with Bernard as real host forever this time, and we ended up playing Suikoden 2, and
Yeah.
Suikoden 2 beat out Wild Arms for our 32-bit games that feel like 16-bit games block. And Wild Arms, as we know, is one of my favorites, and that's why we're playing one of my favorite games right now for Wild Arms 5. But Wild Arms 1 is a Lufia 2 like, if you're familiar with Lufia 2. But the dungeon puzzles are all like Zelda adjacent, and uh, figuring out the puzzles and actually doing it is a big part of it. Unlike a lot of JRPGs, it'll be like, oh, the switch you need to hit is over there. How do you get over there? And press the switch, and we give you battles along the way. But with Wild Arms, it's a lot of like, hey, here's like a puzzle box dungeon that you gotta dungeoneer and figure things out with, which is very cool. It's
And it's notably Wild West themed, sorta.
yeah.
But it's also very JRPG.
Yes. Uh if we end up playing Wild Arms, there is the remake that makes it more cowboy because the original is not as cowboy, but the original sprite work is really really good, and they do a lot of sprite based comedy that PS2 era polygons just can't do. So it's very very much a toss up on if cowboy or shenanigans is more important to you. on which one
I've
you end up playing.
heard I've generally heard that the original is the one to play.
Yeah, I think I've heard that as well. I haven't played the remake. I've gotten about a third of the way through the original like 4 or 5 times, and I've never felt like playing Alter Code F.
Man, why hasn't Sony just made a Wild Arms collection?
Yeah, they could even piecemeal meal it. I wouldn't care if it's just $20 for a decent port of all of them.
I mean, you can get Wild Arms 1 on PS4 and PS5, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, one and two, but I would like all of them.
Yes.
I think you might be able to get three on PS4 too, but four and five
The
are
PS4 2, the sequel to PS4.
yes. Um, but yeah, I want either more Wild Arms or more easily accessible Wild Arms. Um, Speaking of things that need to be made more easily accessible, the next one we did was our mini long cast where we all met Trish, and it was wild. When I was looking for guests, I was like, hey, these are the games that we're playing, but just so you know, if you pick the Persona or Super Shin Megami Tensei block, my brain was looking at the letters SMT4 and said Super Mario Tensei 4. um, so if you pick this one, it's going to be like 20-25 weeks, like a pretty decent chunk. And Trish was like, I don't care. I want to play Persona 2 on the podcast. And then we said, do that forever. And now they're our co-host. But
Persona
notable
2 was real good. And we put it up because we were like thinking mini long cast, because we used to do a thing called long cast where we played a really long series, and we don't do that anymore because we were putting out too much content. Our content was too much, our swag was too real, our bitch was too bad. They were gonna kill us.
absolutely.
So we were gonna do um Persona 2, Innocent Sin, and Eternal Punishment, which is very much like East 1 and 2. You very much need to play both.
Mhm.
They're one complete story. And we put those up against Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse.
Mhm.
Um, I haven't actually played Apocalypse. It's a
Mhm.
sequel or a follow-up or something to Shin Megami Tensei 4, but you can totally just play 4.
Yeah.
And we don't want to commit to doing a mini long cast again, so representing that block is just Shin Megami Tensei 4, which I have played, and it's amazing. Um, Tim Rogers once said something like, if he started talking about Shin Megami Tensei 4, he'd have the FBI come to his house because he would sound like an insane person because of how much he loved it.
Yeah. I've only played like I think I got to the first like gameplay bit of walking around the dungeon, I think like once, and I already was like,
It does
oh,
take a while to get to walking around the dungeon.
yeah. Uh but even then just getting that far, I'm like, oh, this is like a big boy RPG. I need to have my big boy RPG hat on and not just I want something to goof around on the 3DS for.
Oh yeah, this is not something that's just for goofing around.
Yeah. Um but release a Switch port, you cowards.
Yes.
But yeah, so that one is good. It's Shin Megami Tensei. A lot of people, and by people I mean I've heard Tim Rogers and Brandon Sheffield and Bernard say that it's the good one of the more recent ones of 3, 4, and 5.
I
So
mean, I think Shin Megami Tensei 3 is an absolute masterpiece, and I haven't played Shin Megami Tensei 5.
oh, I thought I thought you had and you didn't like it because it ran like crap on the Switch, but I'm thinking of
I
somebody else who
played
had.
like a few minutes of it, and it was running badly, and uh, I was like, I don't really have time to play it right now anyway. Maybe I'll wait, and next year they'll release a PC or a PS4 version or something. And it's been 2 years.
Yeah, notably, that that game came out right when around the time Metroid Dread came out, and both of them felt like they were for the Switch Pro that never surfaced. It seemed like a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, I've I've touched it. I've seen the Switch Pro. It's coming out next week. They're going to announce it tomorrow or whatever." And then it never ever happened, even to this day. And so it feels like they both were slightly too big for the britches because they were targeting hardware that didn't exist.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, Shin Megami Tensei 5 was one of those games that was announced for Switch very early on.
Mhm. It was literally
Not,
like the fourth game announced in the original like presentation where they announced the Switch.
I don't think it was that early, but it wasn't as early as Dragon Quest 11, which was announced like back when it was the Nintendo NX or whatever.
I
Uh,
swear, I I believe it was at the Switch launch event. Uh,
the game was revealed in January 2017 as part of Nintendo's unveiling of the Nintendo Switch console in the form of a teaser trailer featuring a destroyed office building and a number of demons. Wow.
I got something right.
Wow.
It can happen, folks. Say enough things, and eventually you will have a piece of trivia in your head that has not been warped by all of the other random trivias in your head. So yeah, to go along with our mini long cast, is we wanted to do a mega short cast and do a a short action RPG, a Zelda like, and we decided to pick the two Zelda likes for two of the Zelda likes. There might be others for the Genesis of Crusader of Sinti and Beyond Oasis. And Crusader of Sinti 1, that game rules. It looks like a Zelda like, but it's kind of a shmup with Zelda puzzles.
And it's really fucking weird. Beyond Oasis, did we decide that we wanted to include the sequel or prequel? I think it actually is to Beyond Oasis
That's
if it
what
wins.
that's what I have in my notes, but
I think
I'm
we
not.
should, because
Yeah,
I think we should do both of them if Beyond Oasis is one of the winners.
yeah,
Because it would probably be like 2 episodes if we didn't, and
yeah.
I, I uh Legend of Oasis looks cool too.
Hmm.
Beyond Oasis is also called The Story of Thor.
Hmm.
Just
Um,
like Crusader of Sinti is also called Ragnacinti and also called Soleil.
ma- ma- localizing games in the 90s was something. It was
Mm-hmm.
everything was called something different for almost no reason, like Illusion of Gaia and Illusion of Time. Like
Also,
they shouldn't like neither of those are offensive. Neither of those are plagiarized. Why were they
mhm.
called different things? Who knows?
Another notable thing about Beyond Oasis is it has music by Yuzo Koshiro,
Hmm.
who, one of the legends of video game music. So
And it has chonky ass sprites, which are
chunky ass
beautiful.
sprites.
Yes.
The asses in that game are so chunky.
And then finally, that brings us up to this year, where we didn't even realize we were saying it when we did the polls. But Bernard's auto RPGs were Skies of Arcadia and Paper Mario. Obviously, we played Skies of Arcadia. Didn't
Yeah,
play
we
Paper
did.
Mario. But then Trish's were Super Lesbian Animal RPG and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. So both of the straight up RPGs in the Paper Mario series are available for your vote, which is hilarious to me. I literally didn't even realize it until we were starting to talk about this poll and realized that both of them were in there. But yeah, Paper Mario is Mario, the
But paper.
but paper, and it's a RPG, and it's great, and
I
it's
actually
really good.
replayed it last month because I knew that it was going to be in this, and I knew it was going to have a decent chance of winning, but I just really wanted to play it.
Mhm.
And If I had to play it again, I wouldn't even be mad.
Yeah. Paper Mario is the first game that when I went to return it to Blockbuster, or specifically to 49 and More Video Superstore in Winnie, Texas, or Liberty, Texas. It was Video Depot in Winnie because I want my Southeast Texas people to the fact checkers that live there. I want them to know that I do know what I'm talking about. But at 49 and More, we brought it up and we're like, the N64 saves on carts. We're not done with this game. I need you to give me this one back. We're going to check it out again. I don't want to go to the rack and get another one. I will bring the box so you can scan it, but then hand me this one. And they were like, okay, because they didn't play games because
Okay,
this was
good.
in the 90s. I was like, no, it's important. We only have like 4 of the 7 stars. We just were playing as Princess Peach and we could turn invisible now and like all bets are off. We have to finish this game. Um, and then Thousand Year Door is famously the most requested game in the history of our Discord. We have a game suggestions thing, and I swear Thousand Year Door pops up like once every quarter of the year, and it famously lost to Super Lesbian Animal RPG, which is just it's still so funny to me. But if Thousand Year Door wins, it will be the second of the games that we play because hopefully that'll be after they release the remake. So then we can play the remake instead of having to pirate the old one. But
Yeah, Nintendo tends to announce things that aren't in the new Zelda or Metroid Prime 4, like within like half a year of them coming out. So
mhm,
I'm hopeful that Thousand Year Door will come out in like the first half of next year.
yeah,
Because I think I've heard that emulating Thousand Year Door is like there's some difficulties there or something.
yeah,
But so I would like to just play the remake, assuming they don't mess it up, which
yeah,
they didn't mess up Super Mario RPG too bad. So
yeah. And I feel with Thousand Year Door, you can start a remake from a port in a way that they couldn't in Super Mario RPG. So Super Mario RPG had a lot more chances to go bad, and it didn't. So the one that should be an easier transition is probably really good. And then finally, our most recent loser is Star Ocean 4 for the Xbox 360. But the
what
theme
is
for
the actual, is that The Last Hope?
this is the last hope, correct? Um, and the theme for
Is that
this
meant
current
to evoke Star Wars A New Hope?
maybe I
Probably.
never thought about it until right now, but yeah, it sounds like it. And so the block that we're in right now was games that mean a lot to me that for some reason I've never played. And Wild Arms is one of my absolute favorite series, and I've known that the 5th one is really, really good, and I wanted to get around to it. And Star Ocean is one of my favorites. A lot of people hate number 4, but all of my freak friends love it, and so it's probably good actually with asterisks on it. But yeah, so that's the last one. We recently talked about all of its stuff. It's a prequel to all of the other ones. Every game will be a prequel to Star Ocean 3 because of its disc change twist, which pisses me off to this day. I still haven't beaten Star Ocean till the end of time because of that twist. I got there, I'm like, oh, this is stupid, and I turned it off and never played it. Um, so yeah, Star Ocean 4 is the battle system's really, really good. The Star Ocean team is uh the ex-wives of the Tales of team, and they basically have all been having the same battle system with their own unique twist on it for the entirety of the series. And the one in Star Ocean 4 is very close to the Tales of Grace's one, which is like my favorite Tales of one. So Star Ocean 4 at the very least is very fun to play in the opening tutorial, which is as far as I've ever gotten in it. So
And
yeah,
amazingly, the Star Ocean series is alive and thriving today, which I can't believe it.
yeah, especially because So Star Ocean 4, a lot of people hated, but freaks like me really liked. Star Ocean 5, all the freaks like me hated it. I particularly really liked it. So I thought that Star Ocean 5 was just going to kill it. And I was going to be like, "Oh no, this will be like a hidden gem of, oh, it rules actually." 6 7 years later, they're like, hey, here's another one, and then everyone's like, oh, this game is like the sleeper hit of the year. And wild that, because after Star Ocean 5 they released a mobile game where you collect all the characters, which basically is the nail in the coffin for RPG series, but then they made a new one anyways. um
Remember
so
Breath of Fire 6?
yes, I do, and I hate that they called it Breath of Fire 6 and it was a mobile garbage game, because now if
They
they
should
make
just release an actual uh RPG and call it Breath of Fire 6,
just
and just
ignore that that one
just not
exists.
just not care that they released one that was a microtransaction game that, like, I think shut down after, like, 1 year.
Yeah, something like that. Same with Wild Arms Million Memories, which is like, oh hey, here's the thing you like and it's back, except you don't like this and you don't want this and no one asked for it, and because no one asked for it, we're going to shut it down in 4 months. Anywho, that's all 16 of the games that are available right now. We've been recording for 54 minutes. I thought this was going to be a lot smaller of a talk through, but turns out 16 games is a lot. So, yeah, if you would like to vote on these games, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where all of your donations will help us cover the cost of running the show, making it better and better. And then if you set up a monthly donation, you get additional benefits, including voting on this poll. So if you have to at least sign up for the dollar a month tier, and then it'll unlock the post that has this poll in it for you to go and cast your votes and meme at us if you want to. Make us play Hexus Force and Okage Shadow King or something. But uh if you do set up that donation, you'll also get access to our bonus feed, where currently we're working through Tales of Destiny, where this week I ate crow because I had played half of this week when we recorded the last episode. And I was like, oh, character development is happening. We're still just chasing a guy, but at least the characters are going to do things interesting. And there was like one and a half of those scenes, and the rest of it was just chasing a guy. So yeah, you can go hear us talk about chasing a guy in detail if you would like. And then if you donate $5 or more a month, we also shout out your name at the end of every episode, just like this. Shoutouts to Cerebral Wind, It's Clear Time, Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Floris, Kildron, Freddie Rodriguez, Aaron524, and Jfro Prime. And then finally, if you love us so much that you donate $20 or more a month, you also get to make me say a sentence of your choosing, either to plug something or to just make me say certain words. And so shout outs to El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shout outs to Vimk, who really wants you to play Legend of Legaia, like a lot. So much so they're paying me to tell you to play it every week. And then shout outs to Carr, who is a dentist. So he isn't plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day. Most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
Toodaloo, folks.